dramatization is based on actual events. Only the facts have been changed in a failed attempt to make it more entertaining.
The year is 1914. The thunderheads of the Great War hang despondently over Britain's cobbled streets. As the huddled masses prepare for conscription, mustachioed aristocrats are forming underground clubs, such as the Bullingdon Sausage Sucker Society of Little Eccleston. Clubs consisting of black-shirt sympathisers, furtively holding their social-political discussion and bondage soirees with the purpose of determining the fate of their economically inferiors.
To be honest, I don't even like to talk about them. They make me itch. Grubby oaks with their flat caps and pigeons. We should round him all over with goose step at the end of a short pill. Whales funk ball on for rationing.
Scout DF, age 19 and 3 months, bust size 36DD, society flapper, loudmouth Bloomsbury agitator, potentially tonight's first murder victim.
Don't mind if I do, Mr. Both I and Bishop Broadbean are in agreement on this particular issue. The great and washed should work much longer hours for much smaller wages, and respect their superiors by dancing around a barrel organ after the biscuit factory closes, and we shall have the dissenters to the Great War propped up against the nearest potting shed and shot. Dirty conscious, the lot of them, and murderers of His Gracious Majesty the King's English.
The Reverend Gilbert Farquhar Plunduff, age 34 and 3/4, Anglican vicar and closet transvestite, involved in an extramarital affair with Bernard Sykes, a coalman from Skronky, potentially tonight's second victim.
Bloody paupers! What? Something needs to be done about them, that's for damn sure. Caught one of the ugly blighters in the street in broad daylight Thursday last. Didn't tuck his periscent forelock, the nerve of it. Had to beat the ignorant turn to a bloody pope with me wife's threshing stick.
Lord Cuthbert Spatchcock Chinchin Silly Twat Futtock III, age 86, Marchioness of Fluke Hall, Billing's second largest cotton plantation and Liberal MP, also involved in an illicit affair with Bernard Sykes of Skronky Coal Suppliers, potentially a murderer at tonight's event with lead piping in the coal bunker.
Who the devil are you? Damned annoying socialist. Well aware of our elitist position in society. God knows our ancestors had to bump off enough oiks to bag us these seats. Now bugger off before I get Willy Bottom here to stick a rake up your grubby arse and put some damn clothes on.
Meanwhile, downstairs, in the extensive kitchens of Little Eccleston Park Manor boarding establishment, gangbangs and OAP parties catered for at weekends, unbeknownst to their riches and betters on the floors above, the beleaguered masses appear to be holding a political discussion of their own.
All I'm saying, Mrs. Beetroot, is them upper-class toffs seem to think it's generic or something, like they was born better than the rest of us.
Lord, you youngsters today, you wicked populist culture. I wouldn't know that about none of that. I'm too busy boiling lady perms and massive rubber strap-on to go worry me fat doughy head about the evils of politics.
And neither should you, Thomas Arbuckle. It's not your place to complain about our benevolent Tory masters. They're intellectually and physically superior to the despicable likes of us. You should just be grateful that you're allowed to lick Lord Futtock's Wellington sleeve after he spent the afternoon trampling cow manure. There's many a grubby street urchin would give his high teeth for such a privilege.
But Mr. Hudson...
Don't answer me back, you impertinent communist. Wait for me by the iron coffin, Thomas Arbuckle. I'll be back to mete out punishment as soon as I've delivered Lord Aimless Perambulator's toasted anal intruder whilst it's still warm.
Been walking round in a circle in Miss Doubleton. That's the problem with these massive houses. They got loads of blooming corridors.
You impertinent bitch. Go and stand by the chopping block with your pendulous busters out. I'll show you who's master below stairs.
Oh my God, Mr. Hudson, this is Beirut, Junior Footman Thomas Arbuckle. It's already it is. There's been a terrible murder. So what there was with blood pudding and meat cleaver and all. I was just taking Lord Cameron's and chipping Norton and his dead pig's head up, and there he was tied to his bed with Lord Arthur Nicholastic with a blooming great poker star.
How dare you? Stripped to the waist and wait for me by the whipping post, scullery maid, Eliza Pontifrac. I'd never witnessed such a shameless display of unnecessary theatrics.
Inspector Balustrade studies Episode 1, Murder in the Oriental Takeaway, a fiendishly complex narrative from the blood-soaked quill of Agnes Fanshawe race Cecilia, featuring Antipodean thespian and wombat juggler Terence Sedgwick, 15 dwarves in bondage gear, 4 pygmy elephants, and a bucket of Mosey Bird's custard.
Oh, good morning, Inspector Balustrade of Fleetwood Constabulary.
Actually, it's Isaac Willybottom, head butler to Sir Cuthbert Spatchcock Chin Silly Twat Fatak III. Not that it's any of your business. Be off with you, you insalubrious specimen of humanity's nether regions, and take your grimy Macintosh with you.
You misunderstand me. I'm Inspector Balustrade. Now assemble your staff in the living room, Mr. Dickass. This is official police business. I'll meet you there in 3 minutes' time after I've dealt with the aftermath of Constable Makeshift's chicken korma what we had for supper last night.
Approximately 48 minutes later, following one unplanned exploration of Little Eccleston Park Manor boarding establishment, Inspector Simon St. John Hereford Balustrade, trailing a length of toilet roll attached to one boot, finally entered the living room to discover a motley ensemble of grotesques worthy of any closing scene from an Agatha Christie novel, Line Up in a Row.
Bloody time, you blithering idiot. Let's get this over with. Got an important jute-bashing function before brunch, and Willie Bottom's having to keep me poker warm.
And what lackey would you be? Wait, let me work it out with my superior reasoning skills. You've got the sort of bushy whiskers you could construct a corn maze in, restrained by a bollard and Bowster's all-weather shrimping net, size 86 tweeds that reeks of goat piddle, a shooting stick with a knob carved in the shape of a negro's head on the end, an optional bit flask, a chin that's weaker than goldfish's urine, and breath that stinks of Christopher Biggin's bells after an Indian supper with the Thornton Cleveley's over 90s Rotary Club. You're obviously some sort of working class tramp that's wandered in here by mistake.
What? How bloody dare you? I'm the owner of this discreet, unethical, but legally recognised establishment. I've got a pedigree longer than John Holmes' knob. Only the obscenely wealthy can afford to be as scruffy and as degenerate as this, don't you know?
You unseemly temptress of the night. Pert, well-rounded bosoms, fingernails French polished to within an inch of their lives, fulsome lips resembling a pair of hemorrhoid cushions stolen from the Sultan of Bolton's harem, and fluttering lashes seductively enticing the unwary into bed. You must be his lordship's fluffer.
Or in the groundskeeper.
Be that as it may, subservient scum. Last night at approximately 10:30 of the clock on these very premises, not to mention on top of a Black Mamba deluxe speculum purchased from Victorian Albert's secret boutique on Queen's Terrace in Bispham, Lord Gladstone Thatcher Savile Cameron, late of Chipping Norton, Britain's most detested man, was irrevocably murdered. This narrows a suspect's down to 3/4 of the population. He dodged a red-hot poker up his jacksie, which leads me to conclude that was either a fellow member of Cabinet what done it, or a clumsy fellow with, dear God, his bowels are complaining louder than the Lytham St. Anne's suffragettes at one of Benjamin Disraeli's pin a horsewhip on a floozy parties. That's the last time I let Constable Bake-Off purchase his rump steak from Hibbertson's Butchers adjoining Fleetwood Morgan.
Perhaps one can be of assistance with your gastroenterine disturbances, Inspector Baldspot. My name is Alan Weatherby. One is a homeopathist specializing in gout, intestinal problems, and gullible people who rather trust a mumbo-jumbo than conduct any informative research.
Get your grubby hands off me, you homopathic bum bandit. You're sort of still illegal at this juncture of history. You'll get 55 years hard labour at the Glasgow salt mines for this, surrounded by sweaty, muscular men in tight shorts breaking rocks stripped to their waist. That should teach you a lesson. By Willie White, your shriveled gonads. What the handwriting is that?
If one's not much mistaken, it's the legendary hairy pocket of written Inspector Tallywhacker. It must have broken loose when it burrowed into Nave Barracks and is now running amok with disastrous consequences.
As mentioned at the outset, the year in which this escapade is set is 1914. Fortuitously for the author, who'd already reached the conclusion that the plot wasn't going anywhere fast and required a dramatic change of direction, this was exactly the same year that in the first ever episode of the Lord Penruby Adventures, the hairy boggart ransacks Lieutenant Arkwright's office. The at least 100-foot-tall creature had now reached Little Eccleston on its destructive rampage, and, for reasons best left to such ravenous monsters, was cheerfully ripping the thatches from the local hovels and devouring the contents.
What a consummate beast! In this light it resembles the magnificently bearded Edward, Prince of Wales, emerging from his bathtub, only without the soap suds and with a much hairier cock.
Seriously, Inspector, hand grenade. Those sort of jokes only work with celebrities currently familiar to our listeners, and even then, not particularly well.
What's that massive swirling blue vortex that resembles Katie Hopkins' gob behind it?
It appears that the writer is attempting to tie plot holes from the previous series after Laura Penderby and Paul Jenkins accidentally invoked the grandfather paradox in episode 2, they ripped a hole in reality. What one's witnessing here is obviously that tear, connecting their future selves to Laura's grandfather. If one suspends disbelief enough, one could even imagine that the author intended this from the outset.
On cue, the twat emerges. Act smart, Weatherfield. Grab the doorstep as it passes overhead, otherwise you'll be left to the mercy of giant haystacks here. Ah, a convenient rope.
Oh, watch out, Inspector. Remonstrate. That's not a rope. You've got your hand of one's kilt.
As the temporal crow flies, a few short miles and half a century distant from the current melee, in an altogether more sedate, if not rather dusty, Thompson's Ironmonger's of Garstank High Street, the most hilarious event in history ever, according to numerous BBC viewers polls, is taking place. This says more about the British public than the author of this adventure could ever care to know.
Good morning, sir. How can I help?
4 candles.
What?
4 candles. You're deaf as some of you short-ass gurning prick.
We only stock complete forks. It seemed unlikely that anybody would ever want the handles on their own, to be honest.
Put in your hose then, you stunted pig.
Presumably you're referring to garden hose if we're continuing the theme of industrial-sized forks, or do you mean those plastic noughts with screw holes in them, such as one might attach to gateposts?
Nah, all's as in American women what you pay to have oral sex with.
Why don't you fuck off, you annoying twat? What in God's name's that?
Morning, Mr. Thompson. Sorry about this. Hope we're not causing too much damage. It's been one of those days so far, I'm afraid. Fabric at times been torn again, so we're attempting to dam the outflow while swinging from this erratic telephone box. Hold on, Weatherly, old bender.
One is holding on, Inspector Maladjusted. It's what you're holding on to if it bothers one. At least the ladies of the Wet and Balaclava Knitting Guild should be suitably impressed at our next reverse gangbang.
It's been mentioned before, but it's worth repeating perhaps, that nowadays scientists appear to have replaced high-ranking priests in the pantheon of evidence denials. Despite Richard Dawkins' insistence to the contrary, most refuse to question their own stubborn, untested beliefs. Take out-of-body experiences, for example, generally endured by those dying on operating tables. Scientists conveniently put the swirling vortices witnessed at such events down to a release of endorphins at the moment of death. This, however, does not explain how the patient experiences anything at all, seeing as, at the critical moment, brain activity is non-existent. Bearing this in mind, the swirling tunnel now occupying 2/3 of Thompson's ironmongery bears a striking resemblance to the aforementioned near-death experiences, only in this instance it stretches back to the start of humanity, rather than the end of it.
One doesn't think one can hold on to this doorstep, which one might add could do with a good clean, being it covered in old wax hairballs and cotton wool buns for much longer. Inspector Lemonade. Not only are one's knuckles aching, but one's knob is being stretched further than one's sack can endure.
Well, one better bloody well try and hang on, hadn't one? Otherwise one's going to end up with one's arse on fire after we've both dropped into the volcanic landscape what one's passing over.
Apologies, Inspector Marmalade. One's simply going to have to let go.
48 seconds later.
Incredible! The temporal vortex appears to have carried us back to the origins of mankind, Inspector Astrolabe. The enormous puddle of gloop that cushioned our fall is almost certainly the human race in potentia, as it were. Right about now, there should be a chemical reaction taking place, kick-starting life on Earth. Although, for reasons beyond one's comprehension, it appears to be dormant.
You're disgustingly well informed about such matters for someone who waters down night nurse with his own urine and passes it off as a cure for cancer.
One doesn't need intelligence to run a business, Inspector Labia. The average Joe is far more willing to buy into pseudo-claptrap than genuine physics any day. What on earth are you doing?
What does it look like I'm doing? Conducting the Manchester Philosophical Orchestra? I'm taking a dump with it. That was an hell of a roller coaster ride back there. My knickerbockers have got more crap in them than one of George Osborne's budget speeches.
One can't defecate there, Inspector. That's the primordial soup. One could possibly eradicate life from existence by... Oh, wait. Let's find there's some sort of chemical reaction taking place. It appears your cold stool is what brought about life in the first instance, Inspector Chromosome. That would explain a great deal.
Look! The twatter's coming back with a spoon's old bean flicker. Quick, grab the doorstep. Let's get out of here to whatever exciting, if not pointless destination we're headed for next.
Theorising that the Poirot-style murder plot was badly misjudged, Inspector Balustrade grabbed hold of the time-travelling twatter and vanished, trapped in the past, accompanied by his only travelling companion, Al the homeopathist. Balustrade now finds himself leaping from time zone to time zone, correcting history, righting wrongs, hoping, along with the listeners, that each new episode will be his last. Clockwork Coconut Productions, formerly Messy Productions, until all that business with Inland Revenue. How can I help? Right, certainly, excellent. Well, it appears that after extensive consultation with our lawyers over massive copyright infringement, all further episodes of the Inspector Balustrade Mysteries have been suspended until such time as we can sufficiently change the format. In the meantime, you have been listening to Terry Sedgwick as Mrs. Beetroot, Carrie Black as Inspector Balustrade, and Brian Hughes as Nat King Cole. Don't forget to tune in next time, Inspector Balustradians, if there is one, for Episode 2, Lord Cameron late of Chipping Norton has still been murdered and nobody appears to have done anything about it.